The case forever changed the way parents guard their children and how Florida and the nation look for those who disappear.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're examining 10 famous true crime cases that altered or gave rise to new American laws.
Cyanide-contaminated Tylenol has been responsible for 3 deaths in the Arlington Heights area. Do not take Tylenol until further notice.
Rebecca Schaeffer.
Hi, I'm Patty Russell, and this is my sister Sam. I just moved in. We haven't lived together since we were kids.
This young actress found success on the short-lived CBS sitcom My Sister Sam, which ran for 2 seasons in the 1980s. The show, and especially Rebecca Schaeffer, attracted the attention of one Robert John Bardo, who became obsessed with finding her.
Robert Bardo became enamored with Rebecca Schaeffer because of My Sister Sam.
Back in the summer of 1986, when I was watching TV shows like Magnum PI, the commercial for My Sister Sam came on, and that's when I first saw her.
He ultimately turned to a detective agency who found Schaeffer's home address in California's DMV records. On July 18, 1989, Bardo walked up to Schaeffer's front door and shot her in the chest. She was dead at just 21, and her murder led to 2 new laws. The first is California Penal Code 6469, which makes it illegal to stalk an individual. The second is the Driver's Privacy Protection Act, which prohibits the DMV from disclosing a person's home address.
So he hired a private investigator who went to the DMV and obtained Rebecca Schaeffer's home address. It was very, very simple.
William Henry Furman.
You're hereby sentenced to death.
William Henry Furman's name may not be familiar to you, but he altered how the death penalty is applied in the United States. Furman, a black man, killed the white William Mick during a home invasion and was sentenced to death. However, his fate went to the Supreme Court, who found that the death penalty was applied inconsistently and was often influenced by racial and economic biases. Basically, if you were black or poor, you were sentenced to death.
He said it violated the 14th Amendment.
The one which guarantees that all citizens will be treated equally, regardless of their race?
Yes, that one.
The Supreme Court ruled in favor of Furman, requiring new rules to eliminate arbitrary decisions and institute a degree of consistency. This new law invalidated the death sentences of over 600 inmates, and it's why we now have bifurcated trials to separate the guilt-innocent and sentencing phases.
The death penalty is still quite alive and well here in the United States, so Furman was not the end of that story, but it was certainly a major landmark along the way.
Jacob Wetterling.
He told me to run to the woods as fast as I could, and then grab Jacob.
On October 22, 1989, 11-year-old Jacob Wetterling was abducted at gunpoint by a masked man while riding bikes with his brother and friend. They were both ordered to run away while the man took Wetterling. He was never seen again, and his fate remained a mystery until 2016, when a man named Danny Heinrich confessed to his murder and led investigators to his remains.
Savannah, for 9,827 mornings, this young boy's mother had woken up wondering in agony what had really happened to her son. Today, she no longer has to wonder after that chilling confession in this courthouse.
They were found buried in a pasture near Painesville, Minnesota, which was close to where Heinrich lived in 1989. And he's the reason why America now has a registry for sex offenders. In 1993, Congress passed the Wetterling Act, making it mandatory for a convicted offender to register their home address with the state.
There's a nest of eagles right by there. So it's not uncommon for I'll have an eagle circle and it's like, hi, Jake, you know.
Megan Kanka.
The 7-year-old girl from New Jersey became the motivation behind Megan's Law, enacted exactly 30 years ago.
Jacob Wetterling is the reason America has a database of registered sex offenders. Megan Kanka is the reason that database is public knowledge. On July 29, 1944, Kanka was lured into her neighbor's house and murdered. The neighbor, a man named Jesse Timondequas, had been convicted of sexual assault on 2 prior occasions.
That was really our mission, because we felt that if we knew about the danger across the street, we wouldn't let the kids outside by themselves.
At the time, there was no systematic way for communities to be informed about convicted sex offenders living nearby, even if they had a history of predatory behavior like Timondequas. That changed with the introduction of Megan's Law, which enabled law enforcement to notify communities about known offenders living nearby. That public information often includes the offender's name and home address.
Here on Tulsa Police's website, for example, you can zoom in and see where sex offenders are in your neighborhood. These are details law enforcement tell me they keep a close eye on and update often to keep our neighborhoods as safe as possible.
Emmett Till.
Steve, you have spent a lot of time with the Till family over the years. What are you thinking about this moment and the fact that this bill will finally be signed into law?
His name is synonymous with the American Civil Rights Movement, but Emmett Till wasn't alive to enjoy it. That's because in August of 1955, Till was mutilated and murdered by 2 white men in Mississippi. Till was visiting relatives in the state and had reportedly flirted with a local white shop owner named Carolyn Bryant. This act violated local customs, and Bryant's husband kidnapped and murdered Till with the help of his half-brother, J.W. Millam.
I'm so sorry, Mamie. He's dead.
The crime became national news, and with the help of the Rosa Parks incident later that year, galvanized the wider civil rights movement across the country. And 67 years later, Congress passed the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, which made lynching a federal hate crime punishable by 30 years in prison.
Congress has tried and failed to pass anti-lynching 200 times before. 200 times. You know, it's passed the Senate with not just bipartisan support, but unanimous support now.
The Chicago Tylenol murders.
This product may be contaminated with cyanide and should be destroyed.
Those pill bottles may be a pain to open, but they're literally saving your life. The story dates back to the fall of 1982, when an unknown perpetrator tampered with Tylenol bottles throughout the greater Chicago area. They had opened the bottles in the store, laced the pills with potassium cyanide, and then put the bottles back, dooming whoever decided to buy it.
Still, with more than 93,000 bottles from the same batch distributed through more than 30 states, the manufacturer ordered store owners to clear their shelves.
At least 7 people were killed by ingesting poison Tylenol throughout September and October of that year, and the perpetrator was never caught. Numerous changes were adopted in response. Pills were altered from traditional capsules to more modern caplets, and manufacturers introduced tamper-resistant packaging to their bottles.
When you opened a bottle of Tylenol in the early 1980s, or any product for that matter, you didn't see this protective seal. Now it's the law.
Adam Walsh.
The search for Adam Walsh stretched to the wooded areas of Pembroke Pines. There are some 30 square miles here, but a number of people, all wanting to get involved, continue the hunt for the missing youth.
You may know the name John Walsh, host of America's Most Wanted. Well, he became a renowned activist following the murder of his son Adam in 1981. Adam was abducted from Florida's Hollywood Mall while shopping with his mother, and his death was confirmed 2 weeks later when remains were found in a drainage canal.
Oh, it's just heart-rending. It's just I keep telling you this, but it's like a nightmare that just won't stop.
The murder has officially been linked to Otis Toole, although he recanted his confession and was never officially convicted of the crime. Walsh's death resulted in the Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act, which aims to improve the tracking and management of sex offenders. It requires offenders to continuously register with up-to-date information, increases penalties for crimes against children, and publishes all information through a shared national database.
And while the clearinghouse has moved on to modern quarters, the Walsh's work continues to pay dividends today.
Ernesto Miranda.
You have the right to remain silent. You know the line from every cop show or movie you've seen created after the mid-'60s.
Yeah, it's the first in a list of rights known as the Miranda warning.
Maybe you haven't heard the name Ernesto Miranda, but you've certainly heard of the Miranda rights. You know, you have the right to remain silent and all that. The origin dates back to 1963 when Miranda was arrested for the kidnap and sexual assault of Lois Ann Jameson. Upon his arrest, Miranda was not informed that he could remain silent, and neither was he informed that he could have a lawyer present.
And I said, "Well, you didn't do so good, Ernie," kind of sympathetically. And he said, "Well, I guess I better tell you about it then." I said, "Yes, I think you should."
As such, he implicated himself and later confessed to the crime after a lengthy police interrogation. Miranda was convicted based largely on this confession. He later filed an appeal, and the subsequent Miranda versus Arizona ruled that all arresting police officers must inform the subject of their rights.
You have the right to remain silent and make no statement at all. Any statement you do make can be used against you in judicial proceedings.
Amber Hagerman.
We're leaving. We're leaving the very second that casino's finalized and the cartel's out of town. I got a plane standing by, and we wouldn't have been able to take this baby out of the country without triggering an Amber Alert.
On January 13, 1996, 9-year-old Amber Hagerman was abducted from a parking lot in Arlington, Texas. 4 days later, her body was found dumped behind an apartment complex. While the case remains tragically unsolved, it helped introduce an effective system that has spread beyond the United States. This system, of course, is the Amber Alert.
Amber's legacy lives on through the Amber Alert, named after her.
The The FCC endorsed the alert in 2002, and by 2005, it was officially implemented in all 50 states. In fact, it was such a good idea that many international countries began implementing their own version of the Amber Alert, and it's estimated that over 1,000 children have been saved thanks to the famous notifications.
The Amber Alert, I'm very, very proud of it because it is help saving our children's lives. It's helped bringing our children back.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Kitty Genovese.
Her story is taught in psychology classes, and her name is synonymous with people who look the other way when trouble happens.
It's hard to imagine a world without 911, but that was very much the reality through most of human history, even much of the 20th century. At the time, there was no centralized emergency number. Instead, calls went to the local station and officers handled the calls themselves. So let's go back to March 13, 1964, when a bartender named Kitty Genovese was stabbed and murdered outside of her apartment.
It happened here. Kitty Genovese was almost home when she heard a man's footsteps behind her. She ran, but the man caught up to her and stabbed her twice in the back. She screamed, "Oh God, I've been stabbed."
According to the New York Times, dozens of witnesses saw the crime but failed to report it, citing in part the obtuse call system of the time. This has since been largely debunked, but the Fuhrer elicited a groundbreaking response. In 1967, the Katzenbach Commission recommended a centralized system, resulting in the now famous 911 number.
It led to many sermons in churches, it led to gossip, it went viral in the way that things could in 1964.
Did you know the story behind these laws? Let us know in the comments below.
This morning, the search for their son is finally over. Their pain is not.
His legacy will go on.